there, students. Welcome to another Digital Devo. Today's topic is expectations. We're all familiar with expectations. You have expectations that you put on somebody else. What did you expect? You have expectations that you put on yourself. What did you expect? We have expectations put on us by somebody else. What did they expect? Expectations are a part of relationships. So what we want to do is we want to learn how to handle those expectations well. And to do that, we're going to look at a passage of scripture that deals with a father setting the expectations for his son and how that son responds. And then we want to look at two reasons why I think we struggle with expectations and what we can do about those struggles. So first, we look to David and to Solomon. The passage we're going to in 1 Kings, David is talking to Solomon on his deathbed. David is about to die, and he's leaving Solomon, the future king, with some expectations. Now stop for a moment. You think you have high expectations put on you? Look at Solomon. Solomon was going to be the king of an entire nation. And not only that, he was following up his father, who was the greatest king of that nation. Those are big shoes to fill. But nonetheless, he needs to do it to be successful as king. So David's expectations for Solomon were this: be strong, grow up or be a man, follow God's commands, listen to his laws, lead the people with wisdom. And then he also adds in some personal things where David tells Solomon that he needs to deal with a couple of treacherous people that are around him. So there's expectations for Solomon. And we can relate to that. And even more than relating to the expectations put on us, Solomon responds in a way that we can relate to, but even more so, we should be following his example of. Now in 1 Kings 3:9, Solomon is talking to God, and God has said, Solomon, I will give you whatever you need. And Solomon prays for one thing. He says this: give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this, your great people? This is Solomon's response to his expectations. He turns to God and he asks for God's wisdom and God's strength to help him meet his expectations. And we can do the same. Now, shifting over and looking at why do we struggle with expectations? I think it's for two reasons. The first is it's a control thing, and the second is communication. Under this idea of control, that seems to be what we want a lot of. We want control. We want to decide what I do and when I do it. And when expectations are put on us that isn't in our control, that we didn't choose, we have a hard time with that, giving up control. But if we are going to grow and we are going to meet expectations put on us, we have to let go of this idea that it is all about me and that I can control everything. The second idea is of communication. And there's a facet of this that is control. We can't control how an expectation is said or what the expectation is going to be. But we have a responsibility when expectations are put on us to communicate back if we understand or not. Again, when an expectation is communicated, we struggle with it because we may not fully understand. Or we may think it's harder than it really is, or it's unfair. But the idea is we have a responsibility in that expectation to meet it. And part of that is figuring out what exactly is being said. I think of the Hallmark movies. Every single Hallmark movie, which I am not a fan of, by the way, has the same plot line. And the conflict always comes because the two main characters do not communicate, and expectations are not met. And the whole movie would be a lot easier to bear and a lot shorter if they had just communicated in a small way. The same applies for us. When expectations are put on us, all we need to do, if we do not understand or we don't necessarily like them, communicate, talk back in a respectful way to the person that gave you that expectation. Remember, the person giving you the expectation, typically a parent or maybe a teacher, they have your best interest in mind. They want to see you grow. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you improve. They are not necessarily out to get you. So if you communicate back to them that, hey, I don't understand this expectation. I don't understand what you want me to do. That will go a long way. When dealing with expectation, it should not be our goal to simply lower people's expectations of us, but rather to get to a point where both parties understand each other and can grow together. So as we close here, when it comes to expectations, let go of the control aspect. It's not all about you. And be willing to communicate respectfully the areas that you are struggling with when it comes to that expectation. Finally, think about an expectation put on you. Is it fair? Is it unfair? Is it unrealistic? What makes that expectation undesirable to you? Is it because of the control aspect? You didn't pick it? Let go of that control. Is it because of the communication aspect? Talk to the person that gave you that expectation, that goal to meet, and see if you can't understand better what they're trying to get from you. It will make your life a whole lot easier and you will grow because of it. We'll talk to you soon.